What's going on, everybody? I am Keandre, this is Intellect, and welcome back to the channel. Now, the Eastern Conference is as competitive as it has been in a long time this season. There are several really good teams, and I'm not sure there has ever been this much star power out east, at least in recent memory. Let's go ahead and get into my predictions and projections of this year's Eastern Conference teams. Starting at the top of the conference, I have the Milwaukee Bucks. The Bucks have become one of the most dependable regular season teams in the league over the last few years. They have a defined scheme and the talent to win a ton of games, headlined by the two-time MVP Giannis Antetokounmpo. Adding Jrue Holiday is a good move without considering what they gave up to get him, but I'm ultimately not sure it will push them over the edge in terms of playoff success. If there's anything we know Coach Bud can do, it's win regular season games, and I don't expect that to change with a few different members on this roster. The Philadelphia 76ers have had one of the best off seasons of any team in the league. They got off the Al Horford contract that was a mistake from the jump, and received Danny Green and Terrence Ferguson in return. More than anything, this allows for much better spacing and defined roles. They traded Josh Richardson for Seth Curry, who is a much better fit and just a rock-solid player in general. They went out and made this roster make a lot more sense and might even have another deal still left to make. All the talent is there, and I think their experience from last year is going to lead to better success this season. The Sixers are my pick for the 2 seed, and they have a great chance to make serious noise in the postseason. The Brooklyn Nets have one of the most talented rosters in the league, and we know what Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving can do. Assuming KD gets back to full strength, this team is going to be really good. I think the long layoff some of these players have had should work to their advantage, and they should be fresh throughout the season. Though the talent is there is some overlap with the rest of this roster. For them to reach the heights they want to get to, they may need to bring in some players who complement Kyrie and KD a bit more. Karis LeVert and Spencer Dinwiddie are good players, don't get me wrong, but they're going to be in much different roles this season. Not to mention, you have guys like Joe Harris and even a Landry Shamet, whose biggest strength lies on offense. All in all, I'm betting on the talent and think they'll be able to figure it out pretty quickly. I'm not betting against Nick Nurse and the Toronto Raptors. After last season, they've honestly earned a nearly Spursian level of respect from me. Now, they lost Serge Ibaka and Marc Gasol, who are big losses both on and off the court for this team, but they were able to put a solid replacement together with Aaron Baines and Alex Len. They're also betting on Chris Boucher to become a reliable rotational guy as well. The core of this team is still intact, and Fred, OG, and Siakam are likely going to take further steps forward as players. I still really like this team, especially with rookie Malachi Flynn looking great out the gate. They were the 2 seed last year through a myriad of injuries from their best players, so I'm betting on them to once again get a top 4 seed and be a really tough out in the postseason. The Miami Heat are coming off an impressive NBA Finals run, and I think they'll be good again this season. However, the regular season is a marathon, and I think they'll be somewhere in the middle of the conference heading into the postseason. I know it's often mentioned with the Lakers because they have a nearly 36-year-old LeBron guiding their team, but this Heat team had the same 71-day layoff, and I know guys like Goran Dragic, Jimmy Butler, and Bam Adebayo are still feeling that finals run on their bodies. I think Tyler Hero takes another step forward and helps them get through, and hopefully players like KZ Okpala and Precious Achiuwa can contribute something to a team that is definitely likely going to need it to feel as good as possible going into the playoffs. The Celtics are going to go as far as Jason Tatum can take them. If Tatum can elevate himself into true superstardom this season, his team could likely be a few seeds higher than this, but like I said before, this year's Eastern Conference is really tough. This isn't your ordinary 6 seed, but the Celtics lost Gordon Hayward for virtually nothing and will be without Kemba Walker to start the season. They'll likely be relying on the young combination of Grant Williams, Romeo Langford, Peyton Pritchard, and Aaron Nesmith to play a huge role for this team. While talented, it's still a tough ask for them to be consistent throughout these 72 games. This team is going to rely heavily on the strength of Tatum, Brown, and Smart, and my gut is telling me they'll take a slight step back in the standings. Have we seen a 7 seed in the East that is as good as this Indiana Pacers team? They're solid across the board with a hopefully rejuvenated Victor Oladipo, an ever-improving Aaron Holiday coming off the bench, and a mid-season return from my guy Jeremy Lamb. I like this Pacers team and think the new leadership of coach Nate Bjorken could help them out a lot. I don't expect TJ Warren to do what he did in the bubble, but he's a nice player at that 3 spot. I wouldn't be surprised if this team got as high as about the 4th seed, but I think the star power that the teams ahead of them have will be a deciding factor. For the 8th and final playoff seed, we have the new look Washington Wizards featuring former MVP and triple-double king Russell Westbrook. I hate to break it to you, but Russell Westbrook was actually really good last season after a rough start and before the bubble where he had a serious quad injury that was overlooked when he played horribly. I think the strength of this Wizards backcourt with Beal and Russ will lead them into the playoffs. The good thing for them is there aren't any teams you can really trust behind them in the standings, so the lack of defense may not even matter with the points they'll be able to put up. I think the trio of Rui Hachimura, Troy Brown Jr., and Thomas Bryant will be really effective this year. Davis Bertans is going to get a ton of open looks from 3, and the rookie Denny Avdia should be able to fill in the gaps as he learns on the fly. The ability of Russ and Brad Beal will take this team to the playoffs once again, and could even get higher than the 8th seed, who knows. Right outside the playoffs at the 9th seed, I have the Atlanta Hawks. I still think they're a year away from making serious noise, and the pieces on this team don't fit like a lot of people have acted that they do. I would have given the young guys another year to get major minutes before bringing in players like Bogdanovich and Gallinari, who are good, don't get me wrong, but when your cornerstones are Trae Young and John Collins, it doesn't make a lot of sense. There are still a lot of unanswered questions with this team, and I don't think they're ready for the playoffs just yet. At the 10th spot, I have the Charlotte Hornets. I think the Hornets are going to be pretty good this year. You've got Devontae Graham, Terry Rozier, and LaMelo Ball, who I think make up a pretty solid and intriguing guard trio. Gordon Hayward looks primed to go out and get about 25 and 5 each night. Miles Bridges and PJ Washington look ready to take the next steps in their games. They're still lacking a little at the 5 spot, even though Zeller is decent, but ultimately I think this team is going to be really entertaining and solid overall. I don't think they'll make the playoffs, but they'll be in the convo for the better part of the season. Chicago has a nice young team. I like that Kobe White is going to get a chance to be the lead guard this year. It still remains to be seen if he can do it at this level, but I'm glad he's at least getting a shot. I think Zach LaVine takes another step forward, and health willing, Lauri Markkanen and Wendell Carter Jr. will return to that trajectory we saw them at before Jim Boylen came around. They could make a run for that 8th seed if everything goes right, but I think they'll ultimately fall short. Hopefully we get Patrick Williams early and often in the process. That's the main thing I'm excited to see with this Bulls squad. The Orlando Magic are at 11. This is basically the same Magic team that has been the 8th seed over the last couple years. I'd say they'll probably be a solid team again, but also not a team that I'm particularly looking forward to watch outside of Markelle Fultz and Cole Anthony. Nikola Vucevic is still really good, Aaron Gordon is good, Fournier and Tia Ross are nice players, but I don't know if they have enough to make the playoffs this season. As we get closer to the bottom of the East, I'll focus more on things I'm looking forward to watch with these teams that I think have smaller chances of actually competing for a playoff spot. The Cleveland Cavaliers are still in a really odd position. We won't get into detail about this roster, but you should know by now. I'm going to watch a ton of their games to see how guys like Darius Garland, Colin Sexton, Kevin Porter Jr., Isaac Okoro, and Dylan Windler look. I don't think this team has what it takes to make the playoffs, but they're moving in the right direction post LeBron. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Love and Drummond moved at some point in this season either, considering their contract situations and the stages of their careers that they're in. The Detroit Pistons have one of the strangest rosters in the league. I'll be tuning in to see how Blake Griffin looks coming off of that injury, and then the young guys. I think Killian Hayes has great potential. Sekou Doumbouya is one of the more interesting second-year players to me. And then you have the Sadiq Bey, Isaiah Stewart, Saban Lee trio that we'll see what happens with. And then we might get to see what it looks like when they throw 2 centers and 2 power forwards out there at one time. This roster has a much better chance of getting the #1 pick than it does to make the playoffs, sad to say. And we've reached the New York Knicks. Don't be alarmed if you're a Knicks fan. This is probably a great thing for them. I think this roster is built in a way that the young guys will get a ton of minutes, have solid veteran leadership, and still be in contention for a top 3 pick. They're slowly but surely headed in the right direction in my opinion. And hopefully Obi Toppin and Emmanuel quickly get more minutes as the season goes on. I think the trajectory of this team is up, but at the end of the day, they're still bad. And maybe they'll be bad enough to get Cade Cunningham while still having a positive team environment. That's going to do it for this Eastern Conference preview. Let me know how you think the standings are going to shake out in the comments down below. If I had to choose a team to win the East this year, I'd probably go with the Nets or the Sixers, even though I don't feel super confident about any one team winning it. Thanks for watching, and look out for videos on the Western Conference and an NBA Awards preview soon. I'm Keandre, this is Hoop Intellect, and I'm out.